Hey, I'm Jonathan Alexander,
And I'm Elena Getzenberg.
and you're listening to Panthers Tracks. So the Panthers hired a new GM uh, after a month after Marty Hurney was fired, and they went through 15 candidates, and they finally landed on one. They got a late addition to the search process, Scott Fitterer from the Seattle Seahawks. He was most recently their vice president of football operations, and they found the guy that they were looking for.
Yeah, I thought it was, 15 candidates, you can't say it wasn't thorough, right? That's like the
Yeah.
thing. I was just looking back at like when they hired Matt Rule and, they interviewed like two other candidates, like it was not as extensive as it. So I think that's a good sign. I think it's good to see them considering a variety of candidates. And then I think, with the hire, clearly they interviewed 13 last week and could not come to a conclusion. So clearly no one stood out. And then they brought Scott Fitterer in and actually another candidate, Omar Khan from the Steelers on Monday. And then, 3 days later, he's the new GM. So clearly they were very impressed. And him as a candidate, I think it makes sense to fit with Rule. We know Rule wants to say in personnel and all of that. And coming from Seattle, where Pete Carroll's very involved in personnel, very, very involved in personnel, I think, there's a lot of it that makes sense and a lot still kind of to be seen with it.
For it to happen so quickly, it was obviously he impressed them. Scott Fitterer, just based on looking at his background, seems to have a good reputation for finding guys in the later rounds. He was a part. You can't say he was solely responsible, but he was a part of a scouting department where he led the scouting department that drafted Richard Sherman in the 5th round of the 2011 draft. Drafted KJ Wright in the 4th round of that draft. Found Russell Wilson in the later rounds of the 3rd round of the 2012 draft, and that's a little important here. That's interesting. And as the Panthers possibly search for a new quarterback and the quarterback of their future, and they might not be able to get him in those first 8 picks, but maybe Scott Fitterer could find a diamond in the rough there in the later rounds. So I think I think it was interesting that they found somebody who was known for getting gems in the later rounds, and I know he prides himself on that as well.
Yeah, it is interesting that what we kind of went full circle in a way with this, because what Marty Hurney is known for, not necessarily later round picks, but he's known for being a good scout and evaluator of talent. So it's interesting that they, all the 4 finalists all had college scouting background. Most GMs have some sort of scouting, but that's what Scott Fitterer is known for, is for being a good evaluator of talent, and that's something we associated with Marty Hurney. So I just think that's interesting. But I do think, he was with the Seahawks for 20 years, scouting and learning, and I think that knowledge will be helpful to Matt Rule to have someone who's really experienced with an NFL team when he doesn't have that experience as much.
Yeah, and the really good thing about finding those dimes in the rough, he used those pieces to win a Super Bowl there against the Broncos, and they lost to the Patriots narrowly. But those guys were vital to the Seahawks run during those years, and they still have Russell Wilson, who's among the best in the league. Bobby Wagner, who's a 2nd round pick, and he has been an All-Pro for most of his career. So he does have, there is proof there. They struggled some with those 1st round picks from what I saw looking back at some of those drafts. But they've gotten a lot of really good guys that definitely helped him. Fun fact about Scott Fitterer: he played baseball and made it to the minor leagues. And one thing I saw that was interesting with you, Elena, he originally committed to Cal Berkeley, but decided to turn them down. For those of you who don't know, Elena graduated from Cal Berkeley.
Go Bears.
One of the most beautiful schools I've ever been to.
He should have gone to Cal, but he, UCLA is also a lovely school. So
yeah. So basically, and I was looking at a 1992 story in the LA Times, and the coach said he had wanted to play under Bruce Snyder, and then Bruce Snyder left for Arizona State. I do need to check to see if Bruce Snyder and Phil Snow crossed paths at Arizona State. But anyway, so he wanted to play there, but Bruce Snyder left for Arizona State, so he decided he had visited UCLA and decommitted from Cal and went to UCLA and spent a couple years there. Then went to LSU and then eventually got his degree back at UCLA. So, has an interesting background. I think a few shoulder surgeries ended his baseball career, but he's a dual sport athlete, football, baseball. And, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it is. And he's got he was a quarterback, so he's got leadership, he was very involved in sports. It's cool to see someone that played. That's hard to do, to play two sports in college. So I feel like that it's a very unique, you don't see people being successful at that a lot. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. He did and that was one of the main reasons why he ended up transferring from UCLA, because he ended up being a backup. He had wanted to become a starter and try to get the opportunity at LSU. But yeah, it seems to be a very interesting guy. Our press conference won't be until next week, so hopefully then we'll find out a little bit more about the motivation to want to become the Panthers GM and how this came together. But right now it seems to be a good fit. A lot of important things on this to-do list. For one, they got that number 8 pick in the draft. Free agency will be in a couple of months. And then a few coaching hires they need to make. Anything else on the to-do list you think, is going to be important for, Fitterer to address?
Well, I think the one thing to focus on is the 8th overall pick is interesting because the Seahawks haven't picked in the top 10 since they picked Russell Okung, which is what a full circle moment there too. God.
Yeah.
In 2010. So there's, he hasn't really been part of a draft, and the Seahawks are known for trading back. They have traded a lot of first round picks from 2012 to 2019. They did something with their first round pick to move back, or trade for a player. So it's interesting to see Marty Hurney's wasn't known for trading back really in the first round. So would it really make sense here? Probably not. But it's interesting to see what they could do with the 8th overall pick. And there's just a lot of potential with it. And will they go quarterback? Do they want to trade up even? I think that is such a big decision because it relates to the future at quarterback. But other things on the to-do list, I mean, whether or not Joe Brady is leaving is not really Scott Fitterer's business, but it is, but that's more Matt Rule's turf. And that's huge. Either way, if he's staying, there's still a couple head coaching searches he's involved in. So, and if he goes, and there's offensive holes on the staff already, how do they go about filling those? Do they do internal? Do they look outside? That to me is the biggest thing, because you might be developing a young quarterback and you want coaches around him that are good, and you think there's no quarterback coach right now, so that's a huge hiring to me.
Yeah, absolutely. That offensive coordinator, Matt Rule is going to want to have somebody who he really connects with, and I think that's going to be the most interesting thing. If Joe Brady does leave, that Fitterer is going to have to deal with, because they hired somebody who would be collaborative with Matt Rule, would work well with Matt Rule as they go through this offseason and into the future. And the offensive coordinator is going to be super important because offense definitely struggled this past season. It could have been better. So that's going to be an interesting decision for sure, and how they deal with that number 8 pick, whether they trade back or, because the Panthers have a lot of needs. Tight end, pass catching tight end, quarterback, offensive line. Oh, the offensive line, linebacker, cornerbacks.
There are a lot of needs.
There are a lot of needs.
It's also interesting to have a new GM coming in, with a quarterback under contract, like Teddy Bridgewater is for another year. He didn't have anything to do with Teddy Bridgewater signing here, so it'll be interesting to see how they approach that situation going forward. also with like, when you come into a situation where there's guys under contract, like how do you approach that? Are there less ties to them, or how Matt Rule and Scott Fitterer will work together on that? I think will be interesting to see too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, keep checking with us on CharlotteObserver.com for the latest news. CharlotteObserver.com/sports for the latest news. We'll keep you updated. Thanks for listening for this short episode, and we'll see you guys next week. So that's our show. If you like this podcast and want to see more projects like this, please subscribe to the Charlotte Observer Sports Pass, where you get unlimited digital access to our sports section with our current deal for 99 cents for each of the first 3 months of your subscription.
That includes coverage of the Panthers, the Hornets, NASCAR, UNC Charlotte, high school sports, UNC Chapel Hill, Duke, NC State, and more. You can find the Sports Pass at charlotteobserver.com/sportspass.